On a day when we learn that Aaron Hernandez hung himself in his jail cell, found dead this morning at the age of 27 years old. Dan Shaughnessy of the Boston Globe joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Dan?
I'm okay, Rich. How are you?
I'm fine. You're with the team in Washington, D.C., correct?
Yeah, I'm at the Globe's Washington Bureau getting ready to walk over to the White House, and they're coming from they're flying up this morning.
Well, I assume you're just as shocked as everybody else over the news of Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah, I got a call from some TV station back in Boston. It was like 6:30 in the morning. I didn't know, and yes, it's just obviously it's odd to have all these events going on at the same time, and it can't help but sort of just be hanging over everybody as they have their South Lawn celebration today. It's a lot of weirdness attached to it.
Well, I mean, the shocking aspect of Aaron Hernandez is the fact that he was acquitted of a double murder just 5 days ago, and his lawyer, in a statement that I read at the top of the show, flat out saying that the truth as to what happened needed to be sought about what happened in the jail cell. His former agent saying that there's no way that Hernandez would kill himself. So I guess that's the shocking aspect of this. Dan, did anybody see any of this coming?
No. No one's been able to figure out this guy since we started to find out all these things he was up to, his other lifestyle. I mean, the day he signed a $40 million extension, he was 23 years old. He's talking about the Patriot Way and how it changes you, and donating money to Myra Kraft's foundation, and Bob Kraft, saying the glowing things about how he's another son and all this stuff. And, meanwhile, he had already, participated or been involved in blowing away those two guys after 2012, after he caught the touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. And then the Lloyd thing happened after that when he murdered Odin Lloyd. So, there were flop houses, and, he was just evidently part of this kind of prison culture, gang culture, and just really went off in a bad way.
I mean, Patriots are saying that they don't believe they'll be making a statement today. Does that surprise you in any way, Dan?
No, that's consistent. You and I know how they operate, and I understand that. I mean, Bill, in July of 2013, after Lloyd was arrested and released by the Patriots and then incarcerated awaiting trial, Bill had one day where he came out and talked about this, and he was very thoughtful, and it was kind of, that's it. We're going to do it one day, and then we're moving on. And they have successfully done that. This all brings it, of course, back at a very weird time. But no, I think that it'll be asked. I mean, if whatever availability there is with Donald Trump or Bill Belichick, or I don't know how this works. I don't come here often. But sure, I mean, and the national media will get involved in this now, because it's like, hey, wait a minute, that guy played for you. This happened this morning. What's up with that? So it crossed my mind they might have, postponed the visit or something like that. But as far as we know, everything's on, and it's just going to be a big bowl of awkward again.
Dan Shaughnessy of the Boston Globe joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. And in terms of going to the White House, Tom Brady sending out a statement today saying that he's got a personal family matter that he is attending to. What do you make of his statement, Dan?
Well, it's going to be really tricky on that one, because it's very dangerous and not fair to attach any other motivation to things. I mean, this is a very combustible time with our presidency and politics in America, and how polarizing it is, and there's been no shortage of that in New England and in and around the Patriots with their support or non-support of President Donald Trump. So, there are going to be folks who think that Tom's wife doesn't want him to go, so he's not going. She's been pretty public on social media that she doesn't like the president and did not want him being an active supporter. So that's going to be out there. Meanwhile, we know Tom's mom is sick. She was at the Super Bowl. Mike Reese is reporting that she's in Boston. We're hoping that she's doing great. And so, yeah, it's going to be a mistake to try to attach too much motivation to whatever's going on. But if you remember, he didn't go last time when they came here when Obama was president, and I think that he was seen buying a watch that day or something. So whatever he's doing, hopefully he'll he'll not be seen today.
Well, it's, obviously we at this show and in sports, we get it all the time. Whenever we tweet about something other than sports, we're told to stick to sports, and people tune into shows like this to hear about sports and nothing else. But that said, there is a visit to the White House today, and Donald Trump, and we all know, has had a relationship with Robert Kraft. He's been on Air Force One and at Mar-a-Lago. How is that all playing out in the Massachusetts and New England area, Dan?
I can't speak for I think some people are appalled by it. It appears to be very inconsistent with the way Bob Kraft has lived his life and the way that his wife lived her life of taking care of the disenfranchised and philanthropy. And his wife was a legitimate saint. And I don't think Myra would be too happy with Robert bouncing around on Air Force One with this guy. But that's just an opinion. Others may not share that.
But in the general area, is that a widely shared belief?
Well, we tend to. I was just asking. We have like no Republican congressman. We're the state that voted for McGovern. You know how it goes back there. So it's this administration has not been a real party starter for the New England region or for the Massachusetts area, I guess you could say. But everybody's hoping for the best. We're all Americans, and I hope things go in a good way. But there's been heat for the coach and the owner and the quarterback regarding Trump using them to help get elected, and then continuing to advance the friendship, and Bob being on Air Force One and down at the golf thing and on and on. And I think he's the president of the United States. It's a big deal, and they like being near the office, and they like him.
Well, and visiting the White House is one of the greatest honors anybody could ever have. Certainly, if you're a professional athlete, that means if you're visiting it with your teammates, there's the best reason to be at the White House. Dan Shaughnessy of the Boston Globe joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show a day after the Celtics are in an 0-2 hole. I mean, Avery Bradley is saying that Rajon Rondo, of all people, that's got to be an unkind cut for Celtics fans. To be up 2-0, and Rajon Rondo saying that the body language of the team is obvious to them, that they gave up. Does this 0-2 hole return us to the trade deadline and say that the Celtics didn't do the right thing, even though I thought they did the right thing by staying pat? I mean, what does this 0-2 hole mean to you, Dan? Well,
again, the fear is that they're the worst number one seed ever, and the fear is thus far being validated. So maybe they can climb out of this. It hasn't been the same team that won those 53 games. And I've always worried that they're built for the regular season, not the playoffs. They play hard every game. They have a coach who makes them do that. They have a rotation of 10 guys. It all works great in the regular season when other teams aren't doing those things. In the playoffs, everybody plays hard. Everybody goes with their 8-man rotation, and the best players win. And they don't have a lot of the best players. So it certainly doesn't mean they can't turn this thing around. But their lack of rebounding, their depth on the bench, no secondary scorer behind Isaiah Thomas, and Brad Stevens is 2-10 in postseason games, so they need to right this. You can't be a 1 seed and get smoked out at home like that, 2 games. That just never happens. So what are you hearing that the Celtics are going to, like right now, what their plans are? Once the season, obviously, if they advance further than the first round or even the second round, that might change. But what are you hearing about what their plans are should they get the first overall selection in the draft, with free agency also coming up, Dan? They don't really care what we think, and I give Danny Ainge credit for that. He's a big, bold thinker, and he's secure in his own skin, and so they will not, I don't think, get off the route of the plan. I think their plan is the one you've advocated, and building through the draft. They're not announcing that or saying this is a bridge team, but that's what I'm seeing. And I hate it because I'm too old to wait for another good team building through the draft. It's just, it takes too long, and you don't get James Worthy in the first round anymore. You don't get an adult. You don't get a finished player, and you get a 20-year-old. You get Jaylen Brown. I mean, number 3 in the draft used to be Kevin McHale and Michael Jordan. Now it's Jaylen Brown, and that's nobody's fault. That's just the way it is. So I would have traded for Cousins. I would have traded all these picks. I want proven players now, and Butler is better than anybody they have by a lot, and that's what you need to win in the NBA. Well, he's definitely looked like the best player on the floor the first 2 games. That's for sure. But then you also have to wonder if Isaiah Thomas is all there too, Dan, right? Sure. And there's certainly reason for it. It's amazing that he's even out there. He got 33 in the first game. But I'm not totally surprised by this. It's just you could see from the first game with the Bulls, they immediately let the Bulls believe that the Bulls could win. I mean, and it's all over the Bulls' confidence now. You can just see it, and that's going to be a tough thing to reverse on the road Friday night.
Dan, appreciate the time here on. Obviously, this is as unique a sports day in Boston sports history without, I think, anybody playing that I can remember. Right?
We've had some weird ones, Rich. This is right up there.
All right, Dan, appreciate the call. Thanks for calling in. That's Dan Shaughnessy, the Boston Globe.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.